Hi, guys. Welcome to Saba's Vibe, a place where we discuss love, light, and everything in between. Today, I am so honored to have a wonderful guest. Her name is Cortney Shallow. She is a very amazing soul and also a QHHT practitioner, a healing touch practitioner, and an Akashic record reader. I have experienced all three modalities with her, and let me just say, she is fabulous. I will leave her information at the bottom. If you are looking to get information about her and book a session, I definitely encourage you to reach out to her. Today, we're going to be discussing an amazing topic, which is ayahuasca. Welcome, Courtney.
Hello.
We're
Thank
so
you.
honored to have you.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. So, we've been talking a little bit about ayahuasca. It's been exciting discussions, and I thought we should bring this discussion here for anyone else that probably has any questions. So I'm definitely not a professional. I've
Mhm.
only done them twice, but um, I definitely went through it, and I I I super encourage anyone to get with a professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving any medical advice. I'm just here talking about my experience. So what's going on, Courtney?
Yeah, so I guess that brings me to I have an opportunity to do ayahuasca at the end of this month. And it's something that I really want to do and I'm really interested in. Um, but I realize that it brings up a lot of fear and a lot of panic almost like within myself when thinking about it. But I do have to say that even just talking to you, a little bit the other day, and you mentioned something about, it is a feminine plant. So going in and like really working on nurturing that inner child within myself. And just that has helped me to shift my perception. And I feel like I can go more into it as like a wanting to do it versus like being pushed off the edge, um, and facing that fear and panic. It's like, okay, let me sit back and like, let me like really go within and look at what it is that I need and what it is just in my everyday life that um, how I can nurture that inner child within myself. So
Wow, that's
you
so
brought up
beautiful.
some very good points. Um, so I do have to ask, like, with your personal experience, what was your intention going into your first experience?
Okay, so yeah, so for those that have never experienced ayahuasca, so basically, or any kind of healing medicine or plant medicine like this, you go in with an intention. So that's what Courtney is asking about. So Courtney, to answer your question, um, my first night, because I did it for 2 nights. My first one was I wanted the plant and I trusted her to show me what I needed to see for the greater good
Mhm,
with ease and with calmness. And that was basically my intention the first night that I did ayahuasca.
mhm. And you were ready, like you.
Well, look, I kind of did the mistake and I asked for a trillion opinions, right?
Yeah.
And I researched a lot, and I think yeah, you should research, like you've been doing and asking around. But I kind of, hit some walls with certain people that were just like, oh no, it's so bad, it's so negative. But the reality is, I had been called by the plant, and a lot of people talk about this knowing. It's I'm not necessarily the kind of person that will say like, no, it called me, like, but it called me. Like I knew it was time. So I could just feel that inner nudge of like, no, it's time. Um, And I could only know that because I quieted all that noise, you know, all that
Yeah.
thinking part. So once
Mhm.
that was pretty much handled, then I knew like, okay, it's time to go. And when I was there, I basically said my intention and then drank the plant medicine. Now I'm a lightweight, super lightweight. So in other words, like if I take two a leaf or something, I'm like, ooh, you know, like whoa, what just happened? I don't drink at all, never have, and I've never done anything like this. I've never done shrooms or anything or psilocybin, you know, I meant, or anything like that. So this was a fairly new experience for me. So I had actually decided to take a half dose because I know that how my body metabolizes anything that's not normally there. So interesting enough, one of the psychologists said, "Why don't you take a full and then just kind of see how you feel?" And the funny thing was, the ayahuasca spilled on the right of me and on the left of me. So I actually couldn't take more than half, anyways, because it was already gone, you know? So that's what I opted to do the first night.
Okay. So before we get to the second night, so I mean, like overall, like how would you have described your first experience? And I would, this is what's interesting to me too. Did you have your eyes closed, or were they open, or I mean, what are you seeing? Is it internal? Is it external?
Okay. So, first of all, when I took the plant medicine, a very interesting thing happened. A lot of energy has been coming off of my hands for the last year and a half. So as soon as it touched my mouth, something happened energetically where I had my hand held up like this and then the other one this way. And I could not put it down for like 45 minutes to an hour. It just held that position and I could feel all this energy pushing through. And that was literally when it hit my tongue. And I said, well, I know I'm not making this up. So that's the first thing that happened. My eyes were wide open. At this point, I didn't really remember. You shouldn't look at your phone. You shouldn't be looking at time. You should just
Mhm.
let go. So I looked at my clock. It had been about 45 minutes to an hour. And that's when the shaman was playing his music. And the room just went womp. It started shifting and, you know, doing all that. And then time froze, completely froze. Everyone's just still. And I'm just kind of at this point, like, what is happening? Now, I consciously know that I'm having an experience. I'm not detached from my consciousness,
Mhm.
but then I kind of am because I'm like, ha, this is weird. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't get into the question of like how long because it didn't necessarily scare me. It was just different.
Mhm.
And as I'm in this space, I realized that I actually stopped time. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I stopped time. And I'm like, okay, this is great. It's pretty cool to stop time. But I'm the only one experiencing this by myself. So who do I have this to share with? So then I started time again. So I was like, oh, let me start it again. So then all of a sudden the music, like it just went to slowly start back up, kind of like a Ferris wheel when it kind of starts up, like that really in between weird, noise that happens. So that
Right.
happens. And then I start seeing this woman come and she had white stripes here and white stripes here, and she had all these animals beside her. So she was like I took her as Mother Ayahuasca, really is the only way to describe her, almost like a poster, you know. So
Wow.
she kind of came and I looked at her and she basically lifted me and did some kind of spiritual surgery. Okay.
So are
Yeah.
your eyes open or closed at this point?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. At this point, I don't know what's happening, but yeah, I just kind of felt that, and I just said, okay, I can do this. This is interesting. And I just I let her do whatever she had to do. And then I don't
Mhm.
recall anything, but then I recall something funny where I couldn't move, where I was in a funny position for a little bit. I was just like, because I lost sense of my body. I lost sense of hearing. I lost all senses, and I was just this consciousness.
Wow.
And that was very interesting because I knew I was hearing things, but I definitely wasn't hearing anything with my ear.
Right.
I don't know how to describe that. I've never experienced
Right.
anything like this. Like I said, I've never done any psychotropic drugs, or plant medicines, I should say,
Mhm.
um, anything. So I did, that was very foreign to me. It was a really awesome feeling. And then I started seeing my hands light up, and I could
Mhm.
see like, so my fingers are this thick, but I could see like these really thick white um, lights, kind of like just a really white light. And I was like, wow, the typical psychedelic reaction, like my hands, So I was doing that. And then, the faucet that you have, the sprayer in your sink that most people have, and the
Yeah.
little tube.
Yeah.
So that became each of my fingers.
Oh, wow.
And it was like very erratic, like, woo, like doing that. Each one had an eyeball attached to it. It was very mechanical space. Like everything was metallic, mechanical, literally
Mhm.
like out of this world. And they were just kind of going, hee hee hee. They weren't, it didn't scare me. I was just like, wow, this is fascinating. And then they said, selfie, hee hee hee. Like, you can't take a selfie here. Like, live in the moment. Like, enjoy us.
Yeah.
You can't take your camera and snap a picture of this. Because I'm always trying to snap pictures of like wherever I see the presence of God and beauty. So
Right.
I'm always snapping those pictures, and it was just kind of like, no, enjoy this for you. Be in the moment.
That's
So then
awesome.
I did that, and then the bad stuff started, meaning like, it's kind of like a physical pain, an emotional pain. It's like a pain all over, and it's just kind of a pain like I can't describe, but it's just like I'm pulling on my clothes a little and just going, oh, and just kind of like doing these weird noises, like, oh, this is not good. And I'm pulling
Mhm.
on the bed because you're on a mattress, and I'm pulling on the sheets, and I'm just like, kind of like I had to go hold over and just held my stomach a little bit, because basically it was time to purge. And it was definitely not a physical sensation only. Is definitely a very spiritual feeling. I can't quite describe that urge to purge.
Yeah.
But and then started like this yellow in my background, a lot of bright colors. Have you ever been to a flea market? I'm sure you have. There's like a lot of corridors. So
Mhm.
that started happening, where there was all this beautiful bright color art, meaning the whole place was art. So it was just like these bright colors with triangles and eyeballs everywhere, but nothing scary, nothing negative. Because I would check in with my inner knowing and going, what's happening? You know? And then I would go through these corridors, and I'm just kind of, and I could feel people going, come, like this. But I didn't see them, but I could just feel them saying, come. They were just going, come on.
Mhm.
And I would just go through these corridors of like this world of like all this art and beauty. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. What's happening? And then they looked at me, but I didn't really see them looking at me, but they stopped. And then they pointed to the bucket, because when you go in for ayahuasca, they hand you a bucket, that's your bucket for the night. So I just looked at them, and I'm like, how am I supposed to do that? And they're like, you got to do it. And I was like, oh man, how do I do this? So eventually, like I fought it a little bit, but eventually I purged. That was a very interesting experience. I won't give you the gruely, nasty about it, but let's just say some visuals happen as
Hmm.
well during that process. I don't know if you want to hear that. It's up to you. It's up
I
to you.
mean,
Totally.
yeah.
If you want me to,
Yeah. I mean, I think that at that point, everything, I mean, it's personal to you,
well, I don't
obviously.
mind. I don't mind. I just didn't
Okay.
want to.
Yeah.
Well, so I basically purged, and it was like all these worms, okay, like mealworms kind of looking thing, and it was a lot of them, like thousands of them. And I'm looking in the bucket, going, "Wow, I know it's not real. I can't
Mhm.
like I couldn't possibly have had like all those worms, but in a way I think I did energetically because each worm was like a worry of worrying about somebody
Mm.
or worrying about life or worrying about this, worrying about that. So when I looked at that, I was like, "Oh man, that felt so great." It was like a release of so much garbage that I was just carrying from other people
Right.
and nonsense things that I told myself. And then there was this fat, big worm that left and it just said, "Thank you for releasing me." And it
Mm.
left. Yeah. So I was just like, wow. So after the purge, you get like a good 5-10 minute break. And again, this is not standard for anyone. Like, again, I'm not a professional. I've only done this twice. So I'm
Mhm.
sure there's a trillion other variables. And the best advice I can give is have zero expectations because
Mhm.
it's just like they say you go in with expectation, then you're setting yourself up. So I just want to caution that. But I'm just talking about my experience with the worms.
Mhm.
So I got 5 to 10 minutes of break. And that kind of seemed to be the standard for me. Like every time I purged, I would have like a 5-10 minute break of downtime before that whole thing started again.
Mhm.
So now I purged and now I think I stopped breathing. And I'm like, oh, I'm not breathing because remember, I'm like detached from my body.
Mm.
I'm like this pure consciousness. And I'm like, oh, I stopped breathing. And then I'm like, well, are they working on me and giving me CPR? I guess they are, but I think I'm leaving my body now. So I kind of did a checklist. I went, up. My daughter, she's good. She'll live a great life. It's all good. My husband, he's all right. He's fine. I guess I'm leaving.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, bye, peace out, deuces.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Like thinking, well, this is cool, no problem. And I just checked out, and the funny thing is, that's just kind of what happened instinctively. Now I have a little bit of a cheat sheet. I've looked at death several times before. Like I had to go through stage 3 cancer with a prognosis of like a few years. So for years I stared at death actually. And then I had a couple of family deaths that were very close that happened all of a sudden. So I kind of don't look at death as the end. I look at it as the beginning for the soul that's leaving. It's like the most amazing thing because they get to reconnect with whoever they really are and a soul perspective. And then there's so many other family members over there too. So I just kind of looked at it as like a transition and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So that's why it was that experience for me. Um, I was okay. I really wasn't attached at that moment. So I was okay. And then there was some more purging that happened quite a bit, actually. And then I wanted to step outside, went outside, and then I was totally into the stars. And then what happened? Then there was a scene with my father that came in with a lot of ancestral stuff, like generational stuff that just is heavy on him. So I kind of
Mhm.
understood my father, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. That makes a lot of sense about my dad. And then I asked about my mother, and like it was zero answer, nothing about my mom. So I was like, okay, that because you can kind of have like a dialogue while
Okay.
you're on ayahuasca too. So, I mean, depends, right? Like I said, no expectations. But like I was having a little bit of a dialogue. And then ooh, what happened? It's kind of interesting because I'm actually like reliving this thing right now.
Mm.
Okay, so then um yeah. Oh yeah, then this child and this woman with all this art, like if you look up like artwork, ayahuasca or psychedelic and like look at it, it literally, I've probably seen it in passing. Like I never like proper Googled, but then I already know that's what they're talking about because it was a lot of that artwork. So I saw these two come up to me and I'm looking at them and I know that they're not real, right?
Mhm.
I'm looking at them because they have all this artwork all over them. And I looked at them, and the lady just kind of ushered this kid in. It was like ushering this kid in, and they stood by me, and I'm like, "What? What is this? Like, why?" And then they pointed at the bucket again. I was like, "Oh, here we go again." So
So are you outside at this
yeah, at
point?
this point, I'm outside
Okay.
doing experiencing that, and then I hit 5 hours. Go ahead.
Is anybody helping you? Like, is anybody helping to assist you in your bucket and, getting from point A to point B?
Okay, so they're never leaving you alone. So if you're walking out from the tent, someone's ushering you out. They hold space for you. They don't mix into your energy, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. That's so important
Hmm.
because oh yeah, it's so important. Like I definitely did not want anyone to send in their energy. Like you're
Right.
ultra sensitive at that point. You're feeling everything, you know? So yeah, so they're helping you around and then they switch out your bucket, then they give you napkins, but they never like get into your space, which is amazing.
Mhm.
So then what happened? I totally blanked out.
So you were
Oh,
outside.
okay. I'm outside. Okay, so then I hit 5 hours and it starts to wear off. Um and then I get ready to go to bed. And before that, I had a little snack, meaning the only thing I ate was like some carrots, some celery.
Mhm.
Okay. And like, you know, those veggie chips, like
Right.
potato, like all the roots, like yucca
Mhm.
and all those. I had a few of those. Well, I go to sleep and they run through with like frankincense and palo santo and stuff burning. And they kind of just go through the tents. And I was like asleep. And as soon as that came in, I woke up and I was like, back in another journey.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I read somewhere that you could eat and it comes circulates back in your system, but
Mhm.
I didn't really understand that because I was like I didn't sit here and eat a meal. Like I just had a few sticks. So I don't know what was going on, but that Palo
Mhm.
Santo and that frankincense really helped me to really go into something that was ultimately like the entire, like it was so amazing that that happened because I started to relive all the pain and hurt of losing my sister. So that was a whole thing. And then I go through the whole regret of why did I do ayahuasca? Why I regret it. Now I'm facing all this stuff that I've already worked on for 5 years. All the anger of like why did she die and why did I have to face all this again? I've already worked it out. Like what do you mean I feel to blame about stuff? Like why do I have all this regret? And why, I thought I worked it all out. So I'm like,
Mhm.
geez, is this what ayahuasca does? And I was like, man, I'm so mad. So that went on for hours and hours. And I was just crying. I barely got in a half an hour of sleep. Then you have the next day, you have some breakfast. Then you have integration. Okay. So I'm not pissed. I mean, I had some really cool stuff happen. Um, but I'm not excited. So we go into integration, and integration, I'm hearing everyone talk about all this thing about forgiveness and forgiveness and forgiveness and love and forgiveness. And I'm thinking when I get the mic, I'm going to talk about the psychedelic artwork and the cartoons. and the hands, the mechanical hands, and all the worms. And as soon as they pass the mic to me, I'm crying hysterically in front of like complete strangers. I mean, yeah, we had a night of ayahuasca together, but you know what I mean. I don't really know them.
Yeah.
And the
Mhm.
psychologist is there, and I'm just like crying like a baby. Well, long story short, not to bore you, I probably did like 10 years of therapy in like 10 minutes. I
Wow.
resolved everything that I need to resolve within me with regards to where I was mentally, thinking that I had healed all this stuff. No, it was the layers that had to go through, and final layer was going through it, literally going through the mud. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that was day one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So one thing that I picked up on, and when you going back a little bit, when you said they, like they were working on you, who were you referring to?
The spiritual surgery.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess that was Mama Ayahuasca, Mother Ayahuasca, but there was that female energy, and then there was all these animals. So I'm guessing it was all of these energies working on me.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
just like being in the presence of them, just like being in the vibration of what they were holding the space for you.
No, so all I remember is them coming, and then I just remember laying back, floating, kind of like just being in this like very free ish kind of space. And then so the way it worked was like present consciousness and then just out. So like I could have knocked out for 5-10 minutes because I don't remember anything. So
Okay.
I just remember that initial, and then I'm out. So I don't know if I've jumped to another scene,
Right.
because it's like time and space doesn't exist.
Right.
When you're there, there's literally no time,
Right.
and then
Right.
there's no space. So I don't even know how to answer that, because there was not, I don't know, it was just like an initial like image, and
Hmm.
then kind of like the whole story,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I get it. Everything just kind of collapses into.
Yeah, it's like one thing, and it's like like the grain of sand, and then it's like the whole world right in that one grain of sand kind of feeling. I sound like I'm on it right now. But yeah, so that was day one.
So you didn't get much sleep. How was,
Oh.
I mean, were you able to get some sleep that day before going into? No?
Nope. No. So I'm super sensitive about where I sleep and how I sleep to be able to fall asleep. So
Mhm.
interesting enough, had I remembered that that is my issue, I would have never done this, because I suffer from migraines, and one of the triggers is lack of sleep. So what do you
Oh,
think
right.
happened the following day?
Oh, yeah.
And you can't
My
take any
friend.
medication. You can't take
Yeah.
Tylenol, Aleve, or anything. You can't take anything and mix it with that. That's one of the rules over there. They say
Right.
you can't. So I had to kind of just, go through it.
Right. So what time the next evening did
7:30.
you? Okay. All right. So what was your intention going into that one? And like knowing what you already knew at that point, how did you feel about going into another ceremony?
Okay, so this is so weird. Time was really weird that day. I'm super punctual. I'm super like prepared. And all of a sudden, time sped up so fast, to the point where I was literally almost late to the second ceremony.
Mhm.
And that's a problem for me. Like, to be on time to me is late.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay. So then my heart was racing. And when I did the first journey, my body like felt really cool, and I could just feel like consciousness, experience separate out. Like, it's the best way to describe it. It's just like I felt like, okay, all right, we're all good, and kind of separate. Oh, look at your kitty. So we just
Right.
kind of separated out. And but this one was just like a hot mess. It was like all this, and my heart was like and I had all this stress, and I was like, oh my God. And then I knew it. I was like, oh, my body knows this is gonna be a really, this is gonna be intense, because why would my like my hormones were pumping, my adrenaline, like I could just feel all this stuff going. And I'm like, it's preparing me. I'm like, because I really wasn't, I shouldn't have been that worked up.
Yeah.
That was kind of a little abnormal. Kind of like day one, I was abnormally cool and
Yeah.
calm, but
Mhm.
then day two was like super stressed, you know. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, what is gonna go down today? I kind of just went like that for a second. I'm like, my heart rate's going fast. I could feel it. So the shaman, I had told him my first experience, and he goes, that was on half. I said, yes. He goes, listen, your second one, you're only getting half, um,
Yeah.
because definitely. So I said to him, okay. So I took a half, and he looked at me when I went to go get the plant medicine, and they blessed it and everything. And he looked at me, he goes, half. And I took the half. So yeah, what an experience that was.
Wow. So, what happened the second night? You wanna?
Yeah. So second night was ultra tough. But it was the best, if that makes sense. So like,
Yes.
I don't know, I feel like the harder the trip and the journey, the like the better it can be, because
Hmm.
there's a lot going on that needs to be looked at. So I guess that's what happened with me. There was a lot of things that I learned about myself that I didn't know. Um, that I had this horrible fear of being alone,
Hmm.
always having to be connected to someone. So the first journey was interesting because I took the plant medicine, and then immediately I heard someone screaming and having a really bad trip, like 45 minutes into it. So I sat on my bed again, did the hand things again,
Wow.
and this time I wanted to actually see, is it hitting my tongue, or is it because I'm holding it, or is it cycle? So I kind of like watched to see like when did I feel that energy coming out of my hands, and it literally was when it hit my tongue. So I thought, well, that's interesting. So then I 45 minutes to an hour in, I start hearing someone screaming really bad, like a man, and he's having definitely one of those trips. So I thought, I want to go to him, and I want to
Hmm.
be there. And usually you want to stay away from that person that's going through that kind of journey. And you're just like, oh, you're like, I don't want to mess up mine or something when someone's a little bit loud, if they're screaming or laughing, when they're, whatever it is, it's just your journey. And when you have these outside noises or
Hmm.
things, you kind of tend to want to go like, I just want to go within. But I actually wanted to go out. And I literally just kept saying to him, a few people down, I just kept saying, that's your journey. It was so interesting. I'm like, why am I saying that? Like every time I said that, I could feel my solar plexus like becoming like steel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like that whole abdominal and all the way down just kind of felt like it was becoming steel. And I probably said it for an hour and a half. I don't know, a couple hours. I don't even know. Like for a
Hmm.
very long time, I kept saying that's your journey. And then I understood why, because I get so intertwined with family stuff and friends, and you get in life and stuff you watch on the TV and worrying about people, but it's their journey, you know? It's
Right.
their journey. So I think that was kind of me just programming to me like, hey, that's someone else's journey,
Right.
not your journey.
Right. Which was like mirroring back to you what you needed to know.
Exactly. Now, during this journey, I was definitely like more wobbly. I couldn't walk straight. It was definitely more intense.
Hmm.
Um, so then I went to I asked them to bring the mattress and all my stuff outside because I just wanted to be under the stars. And I kept looking at the stars, and the purge was building up. Is super, super intense. There was some other stuff going on too. I'll just say this, that it was like the the fear of being alone, because all of a sudden I thought all the helpers were walking away, and I'm like, why are they leaving? I'm like, oh my God, like they're gonna leave me out here, like I have no one here. And they were just shifting or something and switching out people. And um
Mhm.
this whole for another hour I was just worried about being alone. I'm like, oh my God, I'm alone. And then I had to go through all that.
Mhm.
That was a terrible feeling. Like it felt so lonely. And I would just try to get up and ask them, like, how much longer is this gonna last? I'm like thinking I've been here for like 7 hours, you know? And
Right.
I'm like, I don't like this lonely feeling. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm all by myself doing this.
Mm.
And that was a terrible feeling, like ultra terrible, actually. But I needed to learn that I had this issue. And the following issues are: I was addicted to my phone because during my journey, I was talking to the plant and kind of arguing with her, like her energy. Like I didn't see anything, but I was just having a conversation with her. And she was telling me stuff. And I was like, but why did you do this? Why like, if you don't want me to worry about people's journey, like, why do you pair people up in a certain way? Why do why are we all worked out in a certain life that we are if you don't want us to worry? And the plant was like, nope. And then it would kind of be like, no, this is the way it is. It's their journey. And it was
Yeah.
kind of like I fought that for a while too. And then I would start crying and be like, why? And I'd start crying, like, why would you do that then? So I was just having this conversation, and then I was like, well, I have to write an email and I have to write a text message and work. And then ayahuasca, she goes, really? Seriously? You're gonna do this now? Like we're talking about life, and you're talking about getting on your phone and writing emails and text messages for work? She goes, do you know how that feels to your family when you're doing that? And then I was like, oops. Yeah, that was another lesson, because it showed me how my daughter felt like when I worked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So is this an internal conversation that is going on within your mind? Or are you talking or speaking it out loud? Or do you know at this point?
Oh, I'm speaking out loud.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's a row, because so here's the tent, and then there's like chairs where people usher people out, and then they stick with you. So there's like other volunteers there, and then there's a volunteer behind me, who's an amazing soul. I don't know his name. I wish I knew it. So sweet, because he held space for me. And that was another part of my lesson with the plan, with the journey lesson about like
Mhm.
respecting people's journey. Um,
Mhm.
the other part of the lesson was him holding space, because I said to him, thank you so much for what you're doing. He goes, I'm just holding space. That's all I'm doing. And I was like, click, that's what you do for your loved ones. Because had he, when I was like, because I was in the mud, by the way,
Right.
the only way I could feel calm on day two was face down in the grass in the mud. That's the only way I could feel calm. So he basically um, was holding space. I didn't feel him trying to send in love or send in energy, because I tell you what, you feel everything when you're on there. So you don't want someone doing that, because it makes you feel like you can't do it on your own.
Right.
So then the lesson was, if any stranger or loved one or family member or anything, like whatever it is, and you're sending them this stuff, it's almost like, a little 2-year old who's trying to, I mean, I'm sorry, actually a 1-year old who's trying to walk, who's not really getting it down like they should. And you're like a parent going, oh my God. And you're just loving on them. That's debilitating. Like they need to feel empowered. They need to know that they can do it.
Right.
So that was the lesson I got there. Like, no, don't get all messed up in people's energy. Like give them their space, you know?
Right.
Just like they held my space for me. So if someone's going through something, the best thing you can do is just hold that space. And that's what the plan taught me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's feminine energy. That's empowering.
Super, because when a loved one falls down, you're all like, oh my God, and this, and it's like, no, step back, hold space for them. That's their journey.
Yeah. Wow. So, how long do you feel that that lasted? I mean, that the whole, like the second night, how long did that take place?
So that was an interesting one. Because of the migraine and all the other stuff was going on, I probably purged 12 hours. So I started purging like probably 9, and then my last purge was 9 a.m. That's definitely not what any of my friends have experienced or any research that I've ever seen. But for me, it was that way because I was dealing with a migraine and dealing with so many other issues, just because of the lack of sleep. So it was really, really rough. So I got dehydrated. The cool thing is I was able to get fluids in me, so that was good. The lessons really didn't end for me with the ayahuasca until the next day, when I worked something out with one of my parents. And then the moment that was resolved, then the plant left. Like I could feel her kind of go, okay. I mean, definitely I felt it for the week, but I could feel like the intense part was like as soon as that resolved of forgiveness and love happened, then I could just feel it go like this, like right, just like that. Um, Day 2 was a lot of other surgeries happening. So I probably had like 2 more surgeries that day. I never understood what people meant, but oh man, yeah. So I had a few beings that came to me that didn't look humanoid or anything. And they're like, are you okay? And then they kind of laid me back. And one was standing here, and I think one was back here, and they were just kind of doing stuff. And again, I would blank out. So I don't even know.
Right.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that happened about 2 times. And then I kept saying star. And then I started doing like energy movements with my hand, which I don't know how to describe. And I'm learning about that now because that's been happening a lot,
Mm-hmm.
um, as some kind of language. It's almost like a hand sign language.
Is it kind of like what I witnessed the other day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
It's exactly like that.
Powerful.
Actually, when I did my session with you on the transmission,
Mm-hmm.
more like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like that. So that happens a lot. And I could just feel a lot of energy coming down from the skies. So that was really cool. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was my experience.
So, it being, after the fact, do you think that you have a closer connection with those beings since doing the ayahuasca? Or
Um,
did you connect with them before
I
in
feel
any
like,
way?
yeah, I feel like when it comes to beings, and I'm so open, right? I just know that I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
because I don't know, I always feel like I'm connected to infinity of everything. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm sure I have connected with these beings. It was interesting to me because they weren't humanoid-ish. You ever hear about like people going like, there's no way for your mind to wrap around what you're seeing because you don't have a point of reference. Like if you see something, you're like, okay, that looks like a sofa because you know what a sofa looks like. But when you
Hmm.
don't know what the shape is or the energy is or anything, you have 0 point of reference. So that happened to me in on the plants where there was stuff I was seeing, but I had no reference.
Right.
So I could never even begin to tell you what I saw because
Right.
there's nothing like to say.
Right.
And it was all benevolent, loving, beautiful, benevolent. Did I say that right? It was very beautiful, very nurturing. You know, it definitely was a very interesting experience. I'm gonna do it again. I'm probably gonna
Yeah.
go for a Saturday. When it's because they do Saturday journeys when you sign up for the 2 nights, you can actually do a Saturday morning plus a Saturday night. I opted not to do it, but now that I've done those three, I can actually go in for a Saturday afternoon, and I'm gonna do like a very cold day so I can handle the heat and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
when I do that, let's see how it goes. But I definitely highly recommend it because I feel like I've kicked like my addiction to the phone. Um, I've actually realized that I'm a very controlling person, and that's helped me release a lot of control. I never knew that, and I've released my beliefs about my losing my sister. I've released lots of things that I believed about certain, you know, situations and just in life in general and with family. Um, and I feel ultra more connected to me.
Nice, nice. So, I mean, I guess that's the whole goal, I would think. I was going to ask, what is your takeaway? Like, how has it impacted you now from your experience? And I mean, all of those
Hmm.
are wonderful takeaways. And just to bring you closer to your I am presence.
Spilled
Mhm.
the water on me. Um, so yeah, I did it back in July, and to be honest with you, um, looking back at it, I think it was the best thing that I've ever done, and I'm all about expanding awareness and consciousness and just being, you know, myself and trying to get that healing that I know I want. I had a really um rough life, and um I have been on this journey for the last year and a half of just learning how it feels to be free and learning how it feels to actually start healing and learning what it means to know that you don't know anything.
Right.
You don't know anything. You just are everything.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what else to say.
I know. It's
Um,
ending when you really think about it.
yeah, and knowing that like don't sweat the small things, and it's probably the best thing that we have on the planet. And I know some people have some really horrible experiences. Look, I know I've heard of people having seizures and people not being in things going wrong. Things can go wrong, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I had zero fear about that because I know that I was in a good space. I definitely wouldn't have gone if I felt like someone was pushing me or kind of like, saying like, hey, I almost canceled it before, um, like a few days before because someone freaked me out and a couple people that I was just asking advice, which is fine. They have the right to their opinion. It's totally fine. I respect it. I'm glad they gave me their opinion because I do want to know all sides of it. But I almost
Right.
freaked out because I was already nervous. So even if I didn't hear those opinions, I probably would have canceled anyways because I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm fine. And
Mhm.
so then a friend of mine says, you just need to call it out to the universe. Like, hey, show me a sign. Okay.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to do this or not? And the next day, I had someone come in for a session, QHHT session. And the very first question on their list was, should I do ayahuasca?
Oh, that's right. So you were faced with it like right then and there. Yes or no?
Yeah, actually, not even 24 hours later. And I was like, what? And I was like screaming, looking at her and going, oh my God, that is a question I asked the universe yesterday. Do you mind if I ask for me too? She goes, absolutely, totally do it. So I did. And I don't know, it was a very interesting answer. It was like, oh, yes, it's the best thing for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is way cool.
Yes. Well, that's the beauty of QHHT too, and
Yeah.
what we can
Yeah. I
see.
mean, and QHHT, look, we also have to trust our inner knowing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the coincidence of someone walking in with the same question was my sign, right?
Yeah.
So even if the answer would have been like, nah, I still would have been on the fence Because why did someone come in with that same question?
Right.
Because I believe in us having the ability to know the answers within us,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Absolutely. It's just, it's all those signs, of the universe letting us know if we're on the right path, and the synchronistic things that occur. And it's like, okay, that's the part of the universe talking to us.
Right. Right. And it's listening,
Yeah.
always listening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Do you have any more questions?
No, I think you covered everything. I mean, I feel more empowered personally in going in with it, not having any expectations. I feel more ready within myself versus feeling like, okay, I'm presented with this. So it's like, okay, I have to do it, you know? Um,
Right.
so no, I feel good about it. I feel like I can go in with it with more ease and comfort. Mm. So thank
Wow.
you.
Yeah. And I think it's just so personal. It's so
Yeah.
personal. Like to do this journey, it's so personal. Like
Yes.
to say, yeah, I think the right time is the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how we try to bundle this up in our heads of like,
Right.
should I, the right time is the right time, you know?
Right.
So it's going
Right.
to work out.
Yeah.
I wanted to do this series, with you, starting out with just like, what are your questions and, what are your thoughts? And then I've got two more speakers throughout next week where they're very experienced in plant medicine. And
Nice.
they're going to talk a little bit about their whole journey on it and, what all it's mean for them. And I'll let you know when it's on. So I'll share it with you.
Yes. Thank you.
All
Awesome. Well, I
right,
appreciate
perfect.
it.
Well, thanks for coming on, Courtney. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank you
you.
for having me.
Take care. Bye.
You too.
Thanks.